Dun dun dun. Hello, live on Facebook. Okay. You'd think they'd show up at the same time since Meta owns them both, but we got Facebook rocking and Instagram. I suppose that makes sense, didn't they? It's always a 10-second delay. Didn't they start with Facebook and then bought out Instagram and now run their whole empire? Let's talk about a different empire, okay? Welcome, everybody. We are going to jam live and then post it up on the Experience Miracles podcast. We are into another episode of what we lovingly call the Ask Dr. Tony Show. And if you are watching live, Facebook or Instagram, or if we post this up on YouTube later on and you want to check it out, or you just listen to the podcast and you're like, what the heck is he talking about? I need the visual. You don't really need the visual. I'm pretty sure that my funny / not funny story, and I've brought a prop. Can we call it a prop? I'm wearing my Carhartt hat here today, okay? So going live and getting ready for this Ask Dr. Tony Show episode, I don't even need to look at my phone. I was just outside. Many of you who have listened, you may know, I grew up on a farm in Iowa, cattle, corn, soybeans, pigs, the whole thing, like real farm in Northwest Iowa. In Northwest Iowa, it's all farmland. If you've ever driven through the Midwest, especially those sort of areas where we cut down all the trees that were ever there, there's no hills, there's no trees, there's no nothing to stop the wind in the winter. So it feels like -1 where I am now today, but my farm I now live on. So I married an Illinois girl, married a Crystal Lake gal. So we're in the far northwest suburbs, and we've come back to the farm. Now it's a faux farm, F-A-U-X. It's really more of an Instagram farm. There's no quality production of meat. Well, there's eggs. It's just it's a fun farm, and it's a farm we live on because I want to still be outside. I want to instill chores. We're gonna get to the Carhartt thing here, everybody. I promise. And I wanted to instill responsibility. We wanted to live healthy, away from all the noise, and just be able to be outside all the time. Not just when the weather is nice, but even on -1 degree days, we get outside. So I just came in from being outside because when it gets really extra cold on the farm, you got to do a little bit of extra stuff for the animals to get them there. And I promise this story will then get us to something that is going to be very helpful to you, which is how do you get the most out of your child's therapies? How do you get the most out of your child's interventions? Because if you're doing PT and you're doing OT and you're doing speech and you're doing supplements and you're doing biomedical and you're doing all these things to try and get your child to heal, and you're looking for a bigger breakthrough and bigger changes, that is a question we get all the time in many different frames that I'm going to address here on the live today. But my question is, why do so many people wear Carhartt to go to a local coffee shop and just sip oat milk matcha chai lattes? I don't get it, you guys. Carhartt, I know it's real trendy, right? Now listen, like yesterday, I adjusted 2 of my sweetest, amazing patients who live in Miami. Now they are up here in Chicago for the holiday season, and it was cold. So I was joking with her. I'm like, hey, if you're going to wear that Carhartt, because she had boots on, she had this cute Carhartt hat and everything. Same one I'm wearing, actually. It looks way better on everybody other than actual farmers if you're looking at it for trend and style. But Carhartt is made to go outside and do chores and do Carhartt stuff, you know? Now, I'd imagine Carhartt, the company, doesn't mind at all that people are now wearing it with their Ugg boots and their yoga clothes to go to dinner or go to the coffee shop. But I hope you guys love to have fun on this platform. I hope you love to have fun on this podcast. But I just want you to know this. If you feel this Christmas season so inclined to go get yourself some awesome Carhartt apparel, I want you to take the next step with Carhartt, because we actually talk about it on the podcast all the time with your family. And again, little kids look cute in Carhartt. I get it. My kids have, well, I hope they're not listening to the podcast. They got some cool stuff coming for Christmas from Carhartt, from Farm and Fleet, which is where you get this stuff, right? And go outside and use it. Remember, even in the winter, and you don't have to be, when you're a hardy Midwesterner, this is a good thing. We love this. I actually do love winter because it forces us to slow down, and it's exactly how God made us to have these seasons and have these transitions so that we're more adaptable. So there's actually a purpose to my rant as well. But put that Carhartt on, y'all. We got Power of Hearts, we got Bellaboo, we got all you diving in here live with us. Put that Carhartt on. Go outside. It's good for your nervous system. It's good for your immune system. And the Carhartt will keep you nice, warm, and toasty. Now, What we'll find out is, can I keep this hat on, even though I'm inside now, for the entire Ask Dr. Tony Show podcast episode, where I am going to talk you through the 5 things that are holding your kiddo back from getting the most out of therapy. So here's the frame of the question that comes in. I'm doing all the things, but we haven't seen these big changes yet. I'm doing all the things. Should I be doing all of these things at once? I'm doing all the things. Is there a specific batting order, a sequence? It's the thing we're talking about on the podcast and the platform now more than ever is, autism, chronic illness in kids is a multifaceted issue. So we absolutely need multi-interventions, multiple different providers and solutions to work together to help our children heal. But it's always one of those mom and dad gut instinct things that you knew all along, but you maybe didn't know until someone like me can share this with you and say, hey, the batting order, the sequence matters most. The things you're doing for your child, the PT, the OT, the speech, the biomedical, the detoxification, the supplementation, the hyperbaric oxygenation, the stem cells, you name it, they may be absolutely a good thing to do for your child, but are they the most effective, helpful thing to do right now? And this sequencing, this layering, this integrating effect, that's where the magic of healing really happens. And so if you're looking to really find this magic unlock to get the most out of all your, we'll call them traditional therapies, PT, OT, speech, developmental therapy, and then maybe your, I always am against calling these alternative therapies because they're absolutely essential and foundational to healing. But things like biomedical, diet changes, lifestyle, and so forth. If you feel like you're doing a ton of stuff and you want to find the magic unlock to get the most out of it, that's this episode. So let me pull up my notes, because what I have for you, the way I'm going to teach this to you, getting that cheat code to get the most out of your therapies and your interventions, I want to talk you through the 5 things that in my nearly 20 years of taking care of kiddos, the 5 things that I have seen hold kids back from breakthrough. Because then when we get to the end of this, what we do is we address those 5 things head on. And we say, okay, we need to fix these things first. We need to foundationally make sure we've covered these bases first, so that when we get into these more advanced and intricate and reorganizational healing endeavors, we will get more out of them, okay? So the number one thing that holds a child back, and this is exactly what we teach to other practitioners, other therapists, and other people out there that we love to build a team and a network with. That's what I've done very intentionally, very strategically here locally. And it's actually what we're doing with the podcast. We just interviewed Greer McGinnis yesterday, who is an absolute rock star, biomedical healing. Her page, Biomedical Healing for Kids. We are forming these connections, documenting hope. So this conversation, I feel like, is as important for you if you are a provider who is looking to help heal kids from neurological conditions and take care of them. Because this is not taught to us in any other kind of provider school, no matter what it is. So everybody out there listening in to this episode, please share this one, especially with your PT, with your OT, with your speech therapist, with your holistic pediatrician, or your functional integrative, practitioners. This is a topic that really needs to be front and center for parents and providers alike. So number one thing that holds kids back from getting results in therapies and other interventions is nervous system dysregulation. Now, if you've tuned in with us, this conversation goes by a lot of same to similar terms. Nervous system dysregulation, dysfunction, subluxation, dysautonomia, all simply means, remember we made our Carhartt joke to kick this one off, wearing my Carhartt hat, so I'm going to give you the farmer version. It means your child's nervous system is out of balance. It means the communication between the brain, the central, the autonomic nervous system, and all the pieces and parts of the body. So the muscles, which is motor development. Big muscles is called gross motor. Little muscles for handwriting, for speech, for hand-eye coordination, for visual accommodation, for reading, those sort of things. Those are called fine motor. Handwriting and all the different things that kind of preschool and kindergarten would want your kiddo to kick in, those are called fine motor. So this dysregulation, this dysfunction, this subluxation gets in between the brain's organization and coordination of motor development. So if your child has missed their motor milestones, if they're delayed in crawling and walking and running and skipping and being synced up and then talking and doing these fine motor things, well, then this nervous system dysregulation, subluxation conversation, is the real cheat code to get the most out of movement-based therapies. Because what OT, PT are trying to do is rewire and sync back up the brain and the muscles and the motor system. But there's a communication superhighway between the two, and that is completely dependent upon nervous system regulation, nervous system communication, nervous system function, and a balanced nervous system. So when a child has an imbalanced, disrupted nervous system, dysregulation is kind of a catch-all term for this, it will delay their development in the motor system and muscles, and it'll very much delay their results from movement-based therapies like PT, like OT, and if we take the motor conversation and we apply it to speech and fine motor, so actually you could even apply it to little ones with breastfeeding and latching and swallowing. That's a motor issue. That's a subluxation issue. That's what gets in the way of that. So nervous system dysregulation, especially if you're working on motor development, motor tone, low tone, weak core, these missed motor milestones or delayed motor milestones, if motor is a conversation for your family, motor tone, motor development, motor coordination, you need to get nervous system dysregulation handled first. And at the end of this, I'm going to go through all 5. I'll talk about how we do that, okay? Nervous system dysregulation is also going to get in the way of trying to heal other systems of the body that depend upon the brain to them connection. So the brain controls the gut. Before there's a gut-brain connection, there's a brain-gut connection. And so nervous system dysregulation will first set up shop in the motor system, second, set up shop and wreak havoc with your child's gut, motility, absorption, and elimination, and third, it will also get in the way of the immune system, and fourth, the endocrine system. Now, again, like always, I'm going to talk about these, kind of separate. We're going to go into these little mini chapters as we go through this. But nervous system dysregulation, when a child's nervous system is stuck in what's called fight or flight sympathetic dominance and suppressed in what's called the parasympathetic vagus nerve, rest, relaxation, regulation, growth and development side, that will hinder progress with therapies, that will hinder progress with functional integrated biomedical intervention like none other. If you have thrown the kitchen sink at your child from a movement-based therapy, PTOT speech, and if you have thrown the kitchen sink at your child from a biomedical intervention, so diet changes, supplements, homeopathic, herbal, detoxification pathways, and you haven't seen change, you haven't seen breakthrough, that is a dead ringer for this first issue being in the way. Nervous system dysregulation and dysfunction, okay? Second, this part of the list, and I'm putting it up here second because it is so common, it is so overlooked, and it's such a big deal when you wouldn't think it is. Common childhood challenges with teething, growth spurts, and illness. I don't know any kiddo who doesn't go through multiple bouts of teething and really not like it. I don't know any child who doesn't go through frequent, and we don't always know when they're coming, we don't know when they're coming, growth spurts. And it's also, even when your child is healthy, let's even fly to the other side, the good side. Even when a kiddo is wildly well-adjusted, your family lives chemical-free, toxin-free, crazy healthy, and you're building resilience all the time in your child, getting sick, getting a cold when, the seasons change, getting a cold when Halloween and Thanksgiving and Christmas concerts show up, getting congested, getting a cold, it's totally normal, by the way. Getting a fever is totally normal, by the way. We've been told to fear illness by those that sell us, medications to just squash it symptomatically and give us more of it. But the truth is, these are all normal, pretty routine things that kids go through, but it takes, the word I'm going to use a heavy word intentionally. When your child is teething, when they're going through a growth spurt or they're going through an immune challenge, that is a heavy burden on the body. That is going to take a lot of energy and a lot of resources from the nervous system directed to handle with that happening. So if you've been making progress with chiropractic, if you've been making progress with PT, OT, speech, if you've been making progress with nutritional intervention and so forth, and you kind of hit this tough point, you hit this knot. One of my mentors had this long ball, Dr. Cody had this long ball of yarn, and then at various different intervals, okay, not the same intervals, just various different intervals, he had these knots tied into it. And he would use that visual inside his practice to be able to share with parents, hey, you know what? Your kiddo's teething right now. They're going through an immune challenge. They're going through a growth spurt. This is a knot in the healing process, not because it's not necessary, not because we're not going to get to the other side of it. Get it? Not, K-N-O-T, not. I'm saying not. Are you picking it up? I have to get my brain to separate the two. Okay. So not that we're not going to get through it, but this is a real tough point that kids go through. And so for this short season, we're probably going to see a little less results. We're probably going to run into a little bit of a plateau with the results from getting neurologically focused chiropractic care, neurologically focused PT, OT, or biomedical intervention. So number 2 on this list is you may be in a season where your child is growing, your child is teething. And what I want you to be able to do, because it's really good for your stress and your nervous system, is to be able to see that for what it is. It's just a moment in time where your child is going through that. It's going to be a burden and a distraction on the healing processes to work on those things, because the body has to go through a lot of breakdown and repair to get through teething, to get through growth spurts, and to get through an illness. So these are things we've been teaching our parents for 17 years to say, hey, we were making it. We had a ton of momentum. We were doing really well. And then we maybe kind of hit a little stuck point. Totally normal. Look at these teeth. Totally normal. They're going through this immune challenge. And then we have all of our guide. We have our Raising Healthy Naturally guide. We have our Kick the Sick guide. We have all the things we do to help a child get through an immune system challenge faster, better, stronger. But sometimes that's just time, right? We got to get through that. So that's reason number 2, that you may be held back from seeing results in therapies and interventions right now. Number 3, honestly, for me, could have easily made its way to number 1, but generally number 3 is coming from number 1, which is why I have it here in the middle on our list of 5 things that'll hold your kiddo back from seeing optimal breakthrough results with therapies and interventions. Number 3 is just flat out fatigue, overload, exhaustion. The most important component of health for everybody, but especially for your developing and healing child. Remember, we've talked about this too, and I'm going to actually get into this with 4 and 5. Your child is attempting to go through neurological development and immune system and gut and body maturation and development, which is very exhausting. There's a lot of energy expenditure in just doing the baseline, just doing the basics, just being healthy. You can't stop time. You can't call time out on growth and development for your child to make time for healing. Son of a gun, parents, I wish we could. I wish I could freeze your child's regular growth and development so we could do our healing interventions over a period of time to catch them up to baseline, because what we find is that a lot of times teenagers and young adults actually heal faster because they're done growing. They're not developing at the same rate. So development and being a kid is exhausting. That's why they sleep so much. Why do you think a baby sleeps 14, 16, 18 hours a day to be healthy? Because primarily, they're supposed to spend the majority of their life growing and developing. Why does a toddler still need naps? Why do kids still need, like grade school kids, still need a bedtime of 7:30 to 8 o'clock, okay? If your kiddos are staying up real late and short on sleep, they're going to really tap out and get nothing out of therapy. They're going to really struggle with their gut. They're going to really struggle with their emotions. Sleep is everything, because the solution to fatigue is improved sleep. Now, right here, there's a thing within a thing where we have to come back to number 1, right? If you're following along, because I bet you already know that, right? I'm not telling, it's like when you say, you know what would be really, really good for you if you prioritize sleep, exercise, and eat healthy. And we'd all be like, thank you for your advanced information to help my family be healthy, right? Okay. Wouldn't it be nice if the pediatrician at least even had that conversation, right? They don't even do that. They're like, hey, you need to have these 14 things injected into your child to be healthy. There, I said it. Okay. And it doesn't quite pan out that way. So from there, you go to this fatigue, this exhaustion, this overload conversation. So we've got to get your kiddo sleeping well. I've got some good news. So I'm going to jump to cart before horse here. If this is the first time you're tuning into our platform or our podcast, you may be like, what? But if it's not, you won't be like, what? We just got done going through what is called our progress questionnaire data. So we're getting to the end of the year as I record this, hence again, the hard hat and the cold weather. And what we found is that 87% of our patients report improvements in sleep when themselves. This is adult and kids together. This is infants. This is perfect storm, ADHD, autism, anxiety, epilepsy, POTS, pandas, you name it, and stressed out adults alike. 87% of our patients within the first 6 months of experiencing chiropractic care report improvements in sleep. It is the number one benefit from getting neurologically focused adjustments. Name anything else. A big fan of magnesium. Love you, buddy. Little magnesium friend of ours. Big fan of essential oils. Big fan of blue light blocking glasses and grabbing a book instead of watching TV right before you try and go to bed. Big fan of, blackout shades. How many things have you gone online and worked on for your kids to improve their sleep or your own? 87% improvement. What the heck, right? I literally love what I do as a neurologically focused chiropractor, and I love analytics too. I got a big heart and a nerdy brain, so I love to put the two together. And when I ran that math out of our progress paperwork, I ran it like 3 times over because I was like, I must be using Common Core math, even though I didn't grow up in Common Core. I must be using Common Core math here or something like this, and just kind of like, fancying this one up. This can't be real. The favorite part of my job, y'all, is it blows my mind every single day that these are the results we get with chiropractic. So why did I start a podcast to tell the whole world about it? Because come on, 87%. And after that, I'd have to pull it up. We're going to be going through it at our big team meetings. We're going to be public. We're going to work with our research teams at Life University and others to publish this research as well, because holy mother, does the world need to know this, right? But close on its heels was stress and emotional behavioral regulation. Third, I think like 67 or 68% was improvement in digestive function. And I could have snuck that into the top 5. It's not in here. But if your child is sick, I did talk about that. But if your child's gut is a mess, if they literally constantly have stomach pains, bloating, gut dysbiosis and challenges, not just from a nutritional or a candida or a C. diff problem, but from a subluxation nervous system dysregulation problem, if your child is exhausted, sick, and doesn't feel good digestively, how do you think they're going to do working on their core, basically doing a workout for an hour with their PT? It's not going to work, right? And so we've got to take care of these issues. And even though I started with number 1 and now I'm going through 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, you can probably pick up what I'm putting down. Number 1 is the cheat code to all the others, but it's definitely important to talk about these separately because that's how they play out. Okay, so 4th on the list of what may hold your kiddo back from experiencing breakthroughs and optimal results with their therapies, no matter what they are, okay, is what I wrote it down on my notes as a misalignment. Okay, that's a chiro word. So I'm familiar with the word, so I said it on my notes. Just a misalignment or an out of order, disorganized approach to the different therapies, okay? This is, once again, the sequencing conversation. When we get the blessing and the chance to get on the team and help kids heal, fill in the condition, let's say I'm on your team. The first job I have is to teach you what I'm teaching you here, to teach you about nervous system dysregulation and dysfunction and the perfect storm, and how that the foundational, real root cause issue your child has probably isn't their gut, probably isn't their microbiome, probably isn't neuroinflammation, probably isn't C. diff, and probably isn't all these different things that you were told it is alone. It probably is. They're definitely in the mix. But there's something beneath the surface. Yeah, good thing I have a podcast since I can talk so well. Something beneath the surface, people. That's what I'm trying to say, okay? And it is even deeper than the gut, even deeper than the sensory system, even deeper than the immune system, even deeper than primitive reflexes, even deeper than tongue ties and oral ties, right? So my first job, if you come in for care with us, we're going to spend a lot of time teaching you that stuff. Awesomely, check this out. This is my now new real life existence as a practitioner when I get to work with patients one-on-one here locally or through our intensive program. is because of this content, because of the articles on the website, pxdocs.com, which you haven't gone there. If you haven't yet gone there and read a ton of our articles, read those articles. We pour a ton in this podcast. I pour a ton into that writing, myself and the writing team. Like, those are good articles. They're really great articles. They really serve your family in an amazing way. Now, because so many of my patients know about the nervous system, know that that's the foundational missing link, now what I get to do is right out of the gates, step into problem number 4 and do this job, because no other practitioner knows how important it is. And I don't know that any other practitioner quite has the training, but most importantly, the experience that I do to say, hey, the most important thing we can do to help your child heal is line up these ducks. And we don't do this the same for everybody. Not every kid gets the same order, the same sequence, the same priority. That'd be nice. There's some similarities. There's definitely some pattern overlap, but each kid got sick differently. So the first job we do is we take an in-depth case history and we do in-depth testing of your child's neurophysiological dysfunction. Having that case history deep dive done the way that no other doctors are trained to do, and then doing the exams and the testing that we do, we actually know what needs to get addressed first and foundationally, then second and secondarily, then third and tertiary. And this is essential to healing, because what feels like what we should do, both to a parent and a practitioner, is, hey, this is my journey as a practitioner. I share it all the time on here. I've taken all these classes. I'm trained in biomedical. I was trained in neurointegrative. I was trained in primitive reflex therapy. I was trained in brain balance. I was trained in gut microbiome. I was trained in everything. Am trained in everything. So my first iteration of helping kids was I built a clinic, hired all the practitioners, put it all under one roof, and said, here's how we help your child heal. Starting today, we're going to do these 17 things all at once. The more I added all at once, the less breakthrough and healing awesomeness and miracles we experience with our kids. It took me doing that, and I think it's going to take a lot of you as rockstar parents who are the chief quarterback play caller on your team. You just need somebody in the booth with experience, with a headset synced up to yours to say, hey, can I help you call the plays? So I've been speaking to this more clearly. I would even just very intentionally say, which is not always a comfortable spot for me, with more authority based upon experience, to say, given our understanding of the neuroscience as to what it really takes to help kids heal, and giving our clinical experience, having tried to do everything for every kid all at once, and now learning the art of sequencing and getting kids better, what I ask for all the time with my patients, and I want you to ask your PX docs to do this for you and with you, you need a quarterback. Or probably better said, if we're in the middle of football season, you need a coordinator. You need a GIA. You need somebody with the headset on to help you run the plays and know which ones to do in which order. Guys, I can't stop talking about this, because if there's one thing that is holding your kid back from experiencing breakthrough, is you may be doing C first and haven't yet done A and B. So C and D and E and F might be so important healing mechanisms, therapies, and interventions for your kiddo. But if we deploy them too soon, before some of these foundational things are taken care of, it'll look like it didn't work for your kiddo. And just to put a closing chapter on 4, which is really similar to 5 that I'm going to get to close this down with this Ask Dr. Tony show, this is perhaps the most frustrating part of your existence as a parent, in all those Facebook groups, doing all the Google research and all the Instagram scrolling that you do, which, remember, I say that because I cheer that. That's probably how you found us, right? So I'm the biggest advocate of that ever. Keep doing it. But isn't it so frustrating to read a comment to go, when your child has autism, and I'm going to generalize the heck out of this for the point of emphasis here. When your child has autism and you get into a biomedical, natural autism healing group, and you get into a thread and you're reading the comments and somebody says, we went gluten-free, casein-free, added these 3 supplements, and my child came out of it and started talking, and it was amazing. You read the next comment and it says, we did stem cells and hyperbaric oxygen, and it was amazing, and my child healed and they came through it. You read the next comment and it says, we dug deep into the microbiome and we did a huge detox protocol. We did all these binders. We did cell core. We did all this functional med stuff, and my child healed, and it's amazing. Then you read the next comment and it says, whatever it says, right? We did chiropractic and it was absolutely amazing. That is so exciting and so inspiring. And then when you start to put these things and you invest all of your time, all of your heart, and significant amount of financial resources as well to do these things that other families said work for their kiddo, and it doesn't work for yours, it leaves you in the dark. It leaves you wondering, what the heck are we missing? Because isn't autism this microbiome and toxic load and toxins and heavy metals? So don't I need to get rid of that? And you do. And the kid down the street metaphorically got all the way better and your kid doesn't. That's this conversation. That's where you need a doctor who knows how to dig deeper into all the variables and all the elements individually than any other doctor. I speak to it relentlessly and obsessively on this podcast and this platform. And then in the same breath, I can't exactly do it for your child, each and every one, because if you're in Florida or you're in the UK or if you're in wherever, because this job right here that I'm talking about, that very few trained doctors can do and practitioners can do, it's the hardest job we do. Finding these details. They say, the details matter. Son of a gun, in helping kids heal, it's never been more true to say that the granular details matter. This is what we train our PX docs on. This is not something a regular chiropractor knows how to do. This is not something even your general pediatric and family wellness chiropractor knows how to do. These are the sort of conversations. These are the sort of explanations that I am very, very excited to bring to you on this podcast and this platform, because these are the questions. These are the conversations I want you taking to your practitioners. I want you asking your providers, hey, how do you know the ducks are lined up? How do you know we should be doing this first and this right now and this all at once? I want you to question your providers as to the hierarchy and the batting order on your child's particular case. Because any provider you have should be able to explain this, because their job when they are directly taking care of your kiddo is to do a deep, individualized, customized, just understanding of what it's going to take to get your child better. On the podcast and on this platform, I exist one-to-many with my explanations. In practice, it's one-on-one. Blinders on, this is what this child needs. Next case, blinders on, this is what this child needs. I don't meet too many providers that do that. I have made that the absolute crux and one of the core principles of what we teach our PX Docs Network. I want you to know, if you're already seeing a PX Doc, talk to them about them. Ask them to do this. Give them the opportunity to step into that role as play caller, because if you see this all come together, a neurologically focused chiropractor is an expert, more so at a deeper level, on nervous system dysregulation and function than anybody else. And nervous system dysregulation is the one thing that holds back biomedical intervention, movement-based therapies, counseling, ABA, CBT, neurofeedback, primitive reflexes, you name it. Airway work, you've got to get the nervous system taken care of first. So it makes sense that your nervous system expert provider is the one that will help you line up the docs. Long conversation on number 4, but the number 4 thing that holds a kiddo back from breakthrough with other therapies and interventions is they're doing all the right things, but maybe not in the right order, okay? That final recap statement there is as simple as that is, and it's really simple when you hear it, and it's a really difficult job. So I want you to know that if you're, whichever doctor you're going to give that job, give them a little grace, give them a little time, and you know what? Work with them. Really give them all the information. Make sure, and they're trained to ask all the questions so they get all the information, but it's a tough job. It's a tough job to know exactly what's going to work for each child in what order, and you could do it with a deep dive case history. You could do it with a deep dive set of exams and testing and insight scans, but honestly, the only way you really know is to go. That's another kind of saying. I'm inside my team. They would say that's the famous Dr. Tony saying, like, we're going to do all this hard legwork to say, okay, for this kiddo, here's the plan. We don't really know until we're 2 weeks, 2 months, 6 months into the plan. And we're always keeping the closest attention on that. I want you to have that. I want your families to have that. Out of this list, And I've said it with each one, right? To argue for this one's the most important. So what that really means is they're all that important. And number 5 is pretty simple. So I can go through this pretty quickly, and then we can close this one down. But number 5 is, speaking of how important it is to line up all the interventions in the right batting order and in the right timing, you got to get them communicating. All right. Now, we are praying and looking for, just as a provider who is the biggest fan of integrated and collaboration. Okay. I have a blessing of incredible providers here locally, and now we're building our network to help your kids virtually as well. That's why interviewing Greer yesterday and so many others has been such a godsend to this. And Dr. Ali Miller and their crew, Becky. So anyways, if you see somebody on the podcast, that's who we trust. That's who we would link up with and integrate with. And then if we're taking care of kids together, the most important thing is to communicate, okay? So we work really hard through different softwares and channels, and I wish a better software existed for this. It makes it very hard because of the HIPAA regulations for your providers to talk to each other, and because EHRs, electronic health record softwares, are outdated and awful, and then HIPAA and government is outdated and awful. So we're trying to communicate with each other to help your kiddos, but the world of software, government regulation, I promise you that will get better here going forward, I hope, doesn't help us do this very well, but it is, and oftentimes we need to use you as the carrier pigeon. I literally just called one of my parents a carrier pigeon the other day. I was like, hey, I have not, your providers over there have not given us the paperwork, the HIPAA compliant paperwork. They haven't signed it and sent it in, so I can send them information. Like, they've been really hard to get a hold of. Oh my goodness, our medical people, the hardest people. Even, you know what, folks out there, if you're my homies in the holistic medical integrative world, the medical world, it's like trying to get a hold of somebody who doesn't have phone or internet access, okay? It's like, do you need me to come there and sign papers? Can I meet you in the parking lot? Like, please communicate with us about this child so that we can help them together with you. And that's not easy, okay? So I've really trained, challenged, deployed my team to be very communicable as we do this. So anyways, difficult process, but an important one, to get communication facilitated across your other providers. And parents, I'm probably telling you something right here you already know for sure. You know it's important, you want it to happen, and you've probably taken up that job, right, of said carrier pigeon. If you don't know the carrier pigeon, think they used to use those? Did they tie messages to the pigeon and then send them from boat to boat or country to country? I don't know. It seems like it wouldn't have been a good form of communication to trust a pigeon. I despise birds, period, and I think a pigeon is at the pretty low end of bird hierarchy. Speaking of hierarchy and pecking order, get it? Pecking order. And I'm terrified of birds because you know that for sure, if given the opportunity, if you didn't stay inside and hide from them, that they would peck you to death, because birds are evil creatures. So I wouldn't trust them with your communication. And so that's how I just taught number 5. Isn't it? Well, it's up to you guys to look inward and say, I trust this guy on this podcast, and he keeps talking about birds and Carhartt and all these analogies as we go along. Yeah, because we can't just talk about science and stuff and be all serious all the time. We got to bring in a bird analogy, a farmer story, and a dad joke. And you know what? Wear the Carhartt, not just to sip your oat milk latte, please. Actually, tag me on Instagram, will you? Go ahead and tag PX Talks. You get that Carhartt on, you go outside, and you do some hard work. It's so good for your nervous system. I want you shoveling muck. If you have to Google muck, good luck. I want you to go outside, shovel some snow. I want you to go move some hay bales around with your Carhartt. Just put your Carhartt on. Go, even if you don't even have any manual labor to do, find a neighbor, find somebody, volunteer out there. Just put that Carhartt to work, and your nervous system will be like, dang, I feel resilient and healthy. So if you missed the beginning of this one, then the Carhartt rant I'm on right now makes no sense. But if you got the beginning of this one, you are dialed in. Okay, so put this all into action. How? If your gut right now goes, it's nervous system dysregulation. That's why my child can't sleep. That's why their gut is a mess, even with perfect diet. I need to get that taken care of first. Do that first. Get under neurologically focused chiropractic care. 1A to 1B. If you already are, give it time. Give it time. Give it time. Chiropractic, even done with excellence, dialed in, care plan, techniques, all the things we talked to you about on here, it still takes months. It can take months to break through with just that intervention to then set up the other interventions to be able to break through. So healing can be a many years process. And, really tapping into Jackie, our office coordinator, whose son, Logan, and then Luke too, have just made these incredible miracle transformations. They didn't do it over weeks. They didn't do it over months. She's the best to always remind us, hey, this can take years, but there's a sequence and there's a very intelligent design and batting order to that. Number 2, list of how to deploy what you learned here today. If your child, if you can tell, they're going through teething, so little ones, and they're going through a huge growth spurt, and they're super sick, it's okay to call in and miss therapy that week. Now, right now, I have to say this twice, because parents, you should be hard drivers. You should be go-getters. You are so committed to getting your child's motor milestones and development back on that you will strap them in, get them out on the field and say, you got this. Even when they didn't sleep, they're full of sinus and mucus, their gut is a mess, and they're absolutely exhausted. And what I need to tell you from running a center that did not only chiropractic, but we did OT, we did PT, we did neurointegrative, we did, brain balance, we did all the other sort of stuff. We did all that, okay? The worst sessions were when a kiddo should have been in session. And actually, I'm speaking about this with one last minute of authority and experience on this, because if it was just net neutral, if your kiddo is absolutely exhausted and your kiddo is absolutely sick and they're absolutely going through something that day and you have therapy scheduled and providers, we should be the ones to call this out too, but many aren't because their schedule's booked and they're hard to get into. There's a lot of reasons why what I'm saying right here is really hard to do in practicality, which is why I'm taking a little bit extra time to explain it. But I would highly encourage you to skip that session. Take a week or two, call time out, let your child rest, get them some extra adjustments, get them back in a better place, what we call the ready state or the patent state to get the most out of therapy, because it's not just net neutral. If you have a child push through therapy, fill in the blank, any kind, and they're in a very sympathetic dominant, neurologically exhausted and dysregulated state when they do it, they'll actually often get worse. As a result, it will cause them to be even more tired, even more dysregulated if you push through. Now, there's a sweet spot to this. We talk about it with our providers all the time. That's why we open up, number 5, that's why we open up these channels of communication. We'll have our PT, OT, speech teams reach out to us and say, hey, I noticed that, this little dude is really in a tough place this week. Do you want me to push through with therapy, or do you want me to take it easy and just do maybe just a quick little session or no session at all? I love that we've been able to teach our collaborative teams here. They don't only work for me. They work, but we all work for you and your child and your family, and be able to say, hey, right now, this kid is so dysregulated. We're working through something. Let's just take this session off. Let's slow down a little bit so we can speed up later. If that made sense, goodness gracious, I hope that makes sense. And if you have questions about that, please send them through. I just want you to know it's okay to skip a session or two. It's okay to take a break for a very short season if your child is completely exhausted, sick, and dysregulated, because children who are sick, exhausted, and dysregulated, when they then have to go do hard work, they're going to become more exhausted, more dysregulated. Sometimes you have to push through. It's kind of a mom gut thing that I want you to work with your providers. And together, remember, we build this for you guys to be a partnership with us, right? And then we want to communicate and connect and sync up all the providers so we work together. So this is kind of a mutual decision-making process. But I'll tell you, I wanted to really put it in here to this one because it's a super important one. If you feel like you're not breaking through with therapies, does it seem like every time your child goes, they're exhausted, they're dysregulated, they're sick, and their gut's a mess? We got to fix that stuff first, and you might even need to take a fairly significant amount of time off of therapy, get those things handled, and then circle back, and you'll be like, dang, we were doing the same things, and now they're taking off. Like, we get those reports all day, every day inside our office where therapists, speech, OT, and PT, or even biomedical interventionists will be like, I've been working with this kid for 2 years. And in 2 months, we're getting more results because they're finally getting adjusted. They're sleeping through the night and they're not so dysregulated and their gut and immune system is better. So this is the cheat code. That's why we titled it. That's what we do. Get everyone connected. Go through these 5 things as a family for your kiddo and go, are we facing any of these? If yes, we might need to handle that first, hit pause, hit timeout, put something else on the shelf for a little bit, and then get back to it when our kid has a more functional, balanced nervous system. You'll know that through the care, the neurological insight stand. You'll know that when your child is sleeping, when their gut function is better. And when you hit those breakthroughs, what we call the neurological soft signs, we've done a whole episode about that. Get ready for your child to hit that launch point. Just know that it can take a long time, lots of adjustments, lots of patience. My least favorite thing. Do you notice I took all the way to the end of the episode to say the word? Stupid, annoying word. But it's really important to have patience with our patients when we're really looking to get full, complete healing. Because sometimes if we let our heart get in the way of our head and we go too fast, we pile on too many good things at one time, or we push through when a child is too dysregulated and exhausted, we actually push them backwards instead of forward, okay? So I think it's a pretty important conversation here for you incredible families. Let me check and see if I have any questions. Oh, Mosca won a break from school. You better believe it. Hey, I've had my kiddos who, even my 3 girls who didn't have traumatic birth and all that, like Oliver, there's some times where their nervous systems were just toast, right? And I was adjusting them, and we're healthy. We got supplements. We got all that. Yeah, there's been some rest days built in to the Ebo Life. I love that you caught that. That is, I should have said that in here. That is genius, Mosca 1. Yep, school 2 for sure. Oh, cool. A lot of good feedback on this one. Yeah, not a bird person. What we got to do here, Peter 21, is we got to find out who are the bird people. And then maybe, they might have to go see somebody else for chiropractic care, because I don't know if I can get with that, All right. Oh, Mosca one back. So consults virtually. So what you can do, the best way to do that, do you provide consults virtually if we have completed a local care plan? It's a lot harder to do directly. We would love to. We thought about it. We tested a few things out and it didn't work very well for us to connect directly with you. What we did instead, because we really need the data that you have and the doctor has that did the care plan. So what we want you to do is get a hold of your doctor and have them go through and post up all the clinical data. They're trained on how to do this. So you can kind of just be generic with it and they know how to do the details, or they can reach out to us and our PX support team. They can post up your kiddo's scans, case history, everything on a private HIPAA protected clinical forum where myself and our top docs can review it. And so highly encourage, if you went through stuff and maybe there's a few things that you're like, I still haven't had that explained well. Maybe it's tough doing this work. I have the benefit of having 8 doctors in my team. I don't figure out every case all by myself. I know, my name's on this podcast and whatnot, but I work alongside the best of the best throughout our whole network, and I'm often tapping into them with cases that I may be doing intake on and being like, hey guys, what are you seeing here? So encourage your doctor to post up your child's case history, scans, and all the details, and ask all the questions on the PX clinical forum. And if you want a little more help on that, you send us a DM right now. Our team who runs this inbox is trained how to marry up our world into our membership and our training and our certification program for docs, which if you're seeing a PX docs, they have access to that. If they're not a real PX doc, they don't, but then that would be a good time for them to be like, hey, why don't you full tilt? And they probably are. I'm assuming they are. Does that say kamikaze, Mom? That's it. Okay. Oh no, okay. I just can't read Instagram handles very well. This will be posted up, and it'll be then a podcast episode. So we will try and, it won't let me send a comment back on this. Okay. Anybody? No? Got that beat with me? Okay. I don't know how that came into my vortex today on this -1 degree day. What are signs of neurological detox in teens and young adults? Teens and I want to make sure I help this the best. By the way, you earn your Carhartt. I know this, my FFA and 4-H rockstar, Jess. Okay, so perhaps actually, I don't want to spoil the surprise. I just have an idea for you when you get here for your intensive. Okay, so for sure, the signs are some of the stuff that is stuff you haven't had for a while, like some stuff, certain, I don't know, ticks or other sort of things that maybe had been there in the past, they will kind of show up again. There's a retracing. So I've done a whole episode on detox and retracing, and I want you to listen to that again. But specifically for teens, the good neurological soft signs are definitely sleep, digestion, just physically you're feeling better. But sometimes the detox stuff can be like, okay, I'm actually a little more edgy, I'm a little more jumpy. That is the retracing. Remember, there's all these different things that you almost forget you went through on the journey to where you are today. The nervous system didn't forget. The nervous system keeps a log of all that and a memory of all that, and retracing, often it has to work back through that in the healing endeavor, and some of that will pop up, okay? Last conference talked about a book. You know what? My Life in Pastels, will you send us a DM about that? The Documenting Hope team, I just saw an email. They put the videos up. I just saw an email. I didn't open it up yet to figure out how to access them, but I do know that the videos just came up. I have a lot of books and I love a lot of books, so I can't remember that one right now live on Instagram. If you send us an email, ask us that question, and then say, hey, Dr. Tony said connect to me with the Documenting Hope team for the video. We can get you access to the video recording, and then we can figure out what I said in that recording. You were there. You know that I get going really, really fast. I only have like 40 minutes or so for those keynotes. So I kind of just black out and try and help your families as much as I possibly can when I'm up there. And kind of when I'm on here too, honestly, just being real. Okay, y'all, love you like crazy. Love doing these episodes. We're dropping 2 a week right now. One little tip on the podcast. I know you're catching me live right now. When you go on Apple, please hit that little plus sign to follow and then the little arrow to download. What we are finding out when we get to connect with you guys on DM, a ton of you are listening to it, which my goodness gracious, we're so appreciative, but you're not necessarily following and downloading. And Apple and Spotify, it's that whole year-end thing. They're ranking everything, so it reminded us that. To boost us up in the rankings and be able to reach more kids and families, if each of you individually who are listening, you can actually listen without following, without downloading, and just the algorithm will show it to you, or you just remember to go to it. If you could even be sure to follow and download the podcast, that helps a ton. That'll help us spread this message of hope, answers, and help out to the world. Okay? All right, everybody. Love you like crazy. As always, keep these questions coming. Send them to the inbox. Send them to DM. Send them to support@pxdocs.com. Send a carrier pigeon. If you were on with us earlier, we talked about the functionality or lack of functionality of the whole carrier pigeon process. We moved beyond that. DM will do, okay? And I don't like birds, so I would not listen to your carrier pigeon even if it arrived. Love you.